All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Chase Corrington, and we're seeking to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment and make happiness the way in life rather than the destination. Because if happiness is the way, then we can enjoy the entire journey rather than always striving to get there wherever it is we want to be. And we're reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao, because it is Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. At least I believe it's Tuesday. Let's find out. Yes, Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, and it is currently 2:06 p.m. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been getting some fantastic wisdom that is timeless, that comes to us from 2,500 years ago from a man known as Lao-tzu. And Lao-tzu, some think, was a God-realized being, somebody who was in connection with the divine. And he dedicated these 81 verses, which are regarded by many as the ultimate commentary on the nature of our very existence. And so this classic text, the classic text of these verses called the Tao Te Ching, also known as the Great Way, offers advice and guidance that is balanced, moral, spiritual, and always concerned with working for the good, ladies and gentlemen. And Dr. Wayne Dyer has taken his own time to write an essay or a few pages on each of these verses, and then he has a little title for each of his essays. And today we are on the 28th verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. Wayne Dyer titles his chapter here, Living Virtuously. And that's fascinating to me because whenever he gets on these kind of subjects, he goes a different direction than I thought it would go. And so let's dive right into the 28th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Know the strength of man, but keep a woman's care. Be a valley under heaven. If you do, the constant virtue will not fade away. One will become like a child again. Know the white, keep to the black, and be the pattern of the world. To be the pattern of the world is to move constantly in the path of virtue, without erring a single step, and to return again to the infinite. One who understands splendor while holding to humility acts in accord with eternal power. To be the fountain of the world is to live the abundant life of virtue. When the unformed is formed into objects, its original qualities are lost. If you preserve your original qualities, you can govern anything. Truly, the best governor governs least, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's a really fascinating verse. It's that last little bit that stands out to me most throughout the whole thing. It's like, because it's always talking about the opposites through the first three little stanzas there. And it's like, know the strength, but keep the care. And, you know, it's like have both things and you can have the power. Or it's like, know the white, keep to the black, you know the light, understand what's in the shadow, and you can be the pattern of the world. It's like when you have this overarching understanding, and this is what I'm just getting from the 28th verse here. It's a beautiful day here where I am. I hope it's a beautiful day where you are, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you got yourself a nice beverage while we go through all of this, because this is fantastic knowledge. And it's like, one who understands splendor and also holds to humility is in accord with the eternal power. And that's fascinating. And then once again, the paradox, when the unformed is formed into objects, when you try to label the Tao that has no names is the true Tao, the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. And I'm going back here this many pages to the first verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. It says, the Tao that can be told, this is what I was just referencing, is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao is both named and nameless. As nameless, it is the origin of all things. As named, it is the mother of 10,000 things. And Lao-tzu always refers to this world of the 10,000 things as this physical world that we live in. And then back to this 28th verse in the last stanza here, it's like, when the unformed, the nameless, is kept, you preserve its original qualities. But when you turn it into the world of the 10,000 things, the named, when the unformed is formed into objects, it is lost. Its original qualities are lost. So before I ramble on anymore about the verse itself, let's dive right into what Wayne Dyer has to say about this verse in Living Virtuously. In this verse, Wayne Dyer begins, the word virtue is synonymous with nature. Interesting. I was kind of taking it as like the force or the Tao, the power. Or the Tao, he says, synonymous with nature or the Tao. By being one with nature, the sage, which is who we are on this path of wisdom and enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen, the sage is in concert with the Tao and is a virtuous person in daily life. Here, Lao-tzu speaks about your personal path and also a Tao-oriented way of governing others. And this is something fascinating about the Tao Te Ching and this book itself, is that Lao-tzu goes a lot into governing and government and ideas for better ways of that. And as we get later into this book, and even some of the verses we've already done, you can tell that he kind of talks about leadership, living as the enlightened leader. And so there's some different topics. It's not all just spiritual, mystical ideas here. So Lao-tzu speaks about your personal path and also a Tao-oriented way of governing others. These others could be your family members, fellow employees, business associates, friends, and even the entire process of government if you're in a political position. In fact, much of the Tao Te Ching is focused on teaching all of us how to create an administration that is in accord with these highest principles of the Tao. It is my most fervent intention, Wayne Dyer says, to spread these teachings throughout the world in such a way as to facilitate a transformation of all those who call themselves leaders and are destined for or presently in positions of power. Every person has the inherent capacity to spark massive changes that can lead to the tranquility, harmony, and peace that are our heritage. Lao-tzu calls this preserving our original qualities. Such qualities require the least amount of government. And I think that's an interesting point to note there. These higher qualities, these original qualities, require the least amount of governance and government. So it seems natural to see that we rule best by allowing our Tao nature, which rules the least, to flourish. Now there's words here that are descriptions of higher concepts, like the Tao nature and, you know, these original qualities and this force. And that's why I find this so fascinating to research, because I think once you can get these things, these ideas that can be lumped into descriptions like original qualities or nature or the Tao force or whatever it is, I find it very fulfilling, fascinating, enlightening, life-changing when you can really put the puzzle pieces into place in this kind of great wisdom. All right, I'll continue here. Living virtuously is what you do when you're permitting the Tao to guide you. The advice Lao-tzu gives for doing this is contained in 4 distinct images in this verse. Number 1, be a valley under heaven. Let the river of life flow through you, Wayne Dyer says. As a valley beneath heaven, you're a fertile place of grace where everything is received and allowed. Interesting. You might see it as the lowest area in the spectrum of the 10,000 things, or as the point where you can see all things flowing above you. In this place of humility, the constant virtue of the Tao will never fade away. For me, this means living from radical humility. So get down, if you can, to the eye level of a small child. Looking up, see if original qualities, quote unquote, are more visible. Be like the valley that is underneath everything else, ready to embrace and to tend the seeds that blow your way. Powerful. That's a deep one there. It's like you take the position of tending and nurturing from a perspective of humble grace or humility. Like you don't have to be the best, but you can be the best where you are. Because even at the bottom, there is a need to tend the seeds that need to grow and, place root so that they can reach higher eventually, to higher levels. Number 2, be the pattern of the world is the second image that invites you and all of us to live virtuously. See nature unspoiled by culture, as in the perfection of the uncarved block of wood. The pattern of the world, untouched by humans, is a design of the Tao. So rather than insisting on changing or resisting, remember the old saying, what you resist will persist. So rather than insisting on changing or resisting, you're encouraged to row your boat. And we've talked about this many times on this channel. Row your own boat, ladies and gentlemen, gently down the stream, not rowing somebody else's boat frantically up the stream. You got to think about that one. Row your boat and your life gently down the stream. Trust the perfection of the Tao to take you merrily back to your perfect place of origination. And there's a great poem that talks about going back to the place where we began and knowing it for the first time. So it's like you have this new perspective. And even though you're back to where you began, it's like knowing it for the first time. It's a powerful poem. I like that one. And so back to your perfect place of origination, Lao-tzu is basically saying to let go and let the Tao. Dismiss ego, which you've created, and allow yourself to be in the world by changing how you look at the world. And that's the title of this book, ladies and gentlemen. Change your thoughts and you can change your entire life. You can entirely change your life. Either way. And this is super powerful. I hope everybody's getting value out of this. If you are, smash the like button and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. There's a really fascinating sentence here that's a suggestion we'll get to in a second that says, entertain the exact opposite of what you've been conditioned to believe. I find that fascinating. That's one of those things I think that is important to think about often. To entertain both opposing ideas. Like there's 2 philosophers. I was talking about this yesterday, telling my dad, I think of things like there's 2 philosophers at a table. And, one of them saying, well, these were the ideas of these guys, and then the other philosopher is giving the opposite ideas, and then there's a comparison of ideas going around. And I think that's a good way to think of things, so you can grow to different levels of understanding rather than just the way that we've been conditioned to think of things. Now, number 3, and let's go back. This is how we can, this is how we can invite ourselves to begin to live virtuously. Number 1 was the great humility, and number 2 was the virtuousness. So trusting the perfection and flowing gently with the Tao or life and going down the stream. Number 3 is act in accord with eternal power. This is the 3rd image for living virtuously. Just contemplate for a moment the idea of a fountain of the world, which never fades, never ends, and is there beyond the comings and goings of the 10,000 things. This kind of power is the one to create and then retreat, to form and then render formlessness. I'm talking about the great power here, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of power is the one that can create and then retreat, to form and then to render formless. It is always there, an endless geyser, gushing forth the abundant life of virtue. You're in accord with eternal power when you suspend your ego and become conscious of the Tao flowing in this fountain of you. Picture yourself pouring forth, not from your ideas of self-importance and your need for external power over others, but from a ceaseless source of good and virtue that's in harmony with your infinite nature. Change the image of yourself to a being who's in accord with eternal power, and the virtuous life you want to see will be visible, ladies and gentlemen. These are deep ones. I'm almost having trouble adding a ton of commentary to this because I think it's just so succinctly put, so well written by Dr. Wayne Dyer here. And if you haven't got yourself a copy of this book, then take the time to expand the description at the bottom of the video. And I have this book linked in there so you can order it for yourself and have it within a couple days. And you'll have this for reference on your shelf, because this is great stuff to go back through that will help us all through life. Now, number 4, ladies and gentlemen, for how we can form the image of how we can live virtuously. Preserve your original qualities, quote unquote. And these are all quotes from the verse itself, the 28th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Now, Wayne Dyer says here, preserve your original qualities is the 4th image of living virtuously, and one that I happen to love. Your original qualities are those that you were before there was a you. And if you've never thought about that, then that's a deep subject to think about, because what you were before there was you is very important to know. Your original qualities are those that were you before there was you. This is what Jesus meant by, and now glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before the world began. That was John 17:5. Imagine, if you can, what is meant by before the world began. The original qualities Lao-tzu speaks of are the love, kindness, and beauty that defined your essence before you were formed into a particle and then a human being. In other words, living virtuously has nothing to do with obeying laws, being a good citizen, or fulfilling some externally inspired idea of who you're meant to become. This insightful verse of the Tao Te Ching tells you how to live virtuously. Be a valley under heaven by being humble and allowing seeming opposites to flow through you. Be the pattern of the world by seeing the pattern of your world and living in harmony without imposing ego on others. In accord with the eternal power, be a fountain of the planet by consciously pouring forth from the endless ocean of goodness and virtue that is your birthright. And preserve your eternal qualities by reclaiming and reacquainting yourself with the Tao's essence, with nature's essence, with the God force, with the essence of the great animating divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, ladies and gentlemen, which preceded your birth into form and is our original quality. It is universal, and we are it, and it is us. Here's what Lao-tzu offers you from his 2,500-year-old perspective in this 28th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Entertain the exact opposite. This is what we said before. Entertain the exact opposite of what you've been conditioned to believe, ladies and gentlemen. So instead of striving to see yourself as superior to others, perhaps choose the self-image of a valley. From this grounded, fertile, and receptive position, be willing to hear and to receive. Listen intently when you're inclined to offer advice. And see, that's one of the great teachings I think it's important to put an extra note on is listening more. Practice listening. Because some of us don't listen enough, and some of us speak way too much, and some of us are talking all the time but never really saying anything. And I think that's a symptom of never really listening in the first place. And I think that's really important to try to understand in our own lives, is because we can get too carried away with trying to communicate our own positions and the way we think about things. And sometimes, like this verse of the Tao has been describing, and like Wayne Dyer has been describing here, and like I'm describing now, we have to be, humble. We have to go low and listen and receive and try to understand and have humility and, not have our ego-dominated ways to try to always be asserting itself and never taking the time to take in what it is that we are a part of. We're so often trying to, like the symbol of the bulldozer, we're just trying to push everything around the way that we want it to be, whether it's, communicating with other people in life or the way that we go about what we're doing in our life. And we need to take a step back, I think, more often. And we'll, what's the old saying? 1 step back, 2 steps forward. So, this is what's being offered here to us, is instead of striving to see ourselves as superior, choose the self-image of the valley, the grounded, the fertile, the receptive, to be willing to hear and receive and listen intently when your subconscious wants you to say a lot, wants you to offer the advice and tell people how it's supposed to be, or how that they should be, or how you think it is. It's like, listen instead, and be a humble earth source rather than a lofty ego-inspired person. In the last line of the 28th verse, Lao-tzu is clear on this. Truly, the best governor governs last. Least is what it said, but I think last is applicable there too. The best governor governs least. This isn't advice to lower your opinion of yourself. And that's a key point to point out. I really hope you're not taking this that way, because, I was talking about this the other day with somebody, how these verses and this wisdom can be easily taken the wrong way. if you're still in your ego mind. Like, oh, he's just telling me to, you know, have a lower opinion of myself this whole time, and to not think so great of myself, which is only half of the truth. You're lowering your opinion of yourself so you feel bad. You're not lowering your opinion of yourself at all. What you're doing is lowering, how to see, this is the paradoxical nature of this great wisdom. That's why it takes great study and contemplation and meditation to understand it. It's like you lower, you put everything on an equal scale. Rather than lowering your opinion of yourself or anybody else, or, you know, and like raising somebody else, like putting yourself beneath somebody, you're not doing that. What you're doing is coming from a connection of all things where nothing is lesser or greater than another thing, because there is a acknowledged connection and a force that is nameless that flows between all things and all of us. And then from that position, in order for us to be less, you know, forceful, in order for us to become more virtuous in our lives, then we can lower our position of perspective to a humbler, more, you know, it's like what it said back here in number 1. It's like the spectrum, or as the point where you can see all things flowing above you. You know, the grace of the humble position. It's a good thing. That's what we're getting at. It's not like you're lowering yourself and then you feel bad about yourself. As Wayne Dyer describes, probably a million times better and more quickly here, he says, this isn't advice to lower your opinion of yourself, but rather to see yourself as so strongly connected to the source of being that you know and trust that you're a part of it. And that's funny, I almost got there in my own kind of trying to break that down, because sometimes we can, if you're not thinking of this the right way, you can get the wrong, you know, the wrong perspective. So number 2 here, replace all negativity with love. Khalil Gibran, the spiritual Lebanese poet, once advised that if you cannot work with love, I was going to say walk, if you cannot walk with love, you cannot make it the way of your life, ladies and gentlemen, like a activity that you do during the rest of your activities in life. Sorry, I trailed off there. Khalil Gibran once advised that if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work and sit at the gate of the temple and take alms of those who work with joy. Actively begin the process of preserving your original qualities. Oh, storage space running low. Preserve your original qualities by being an instrument of spirit, particularly in places where you find it easy to forget your own true virtuous self. Looks like we're still recording, so let's finish it up, ladies and gentlemen, because we're at the end of the chapter, and at the end of every chapter, Wayne Dyer gives us a suggestion, a way that we can put this knowledge into practical application, into action in our life. And today he says, do the Tao now. Be childlike, at least once a day. Deliberately set a typical stressful situation, select one, and become a valley of heaven. Play rather than work, even while you're at your job. Giggle rather than maintaining a solemn air. Be in awe for a moment or two. This is a great suggestion. For example, find a spider web and just gaze at the miracle before you. A tiny little creature spinning a perfect net bigger than it is in order to catch airborne bugs for dinner. Wow. And that's a fascinating way to end the chapter. That's because, that's what we need to do so often to get out of the routine that we're so taught to live like. It's like we need to be childlike at least once a day and take things not so seriously and enjoy the beauty of the small things that we so usually and so easily take for granted. I hope you got value, ladies and gentlemen. I always enjoy these, and we do these every Tuesday. Doing the Tao now on Tuesdays, the Tuesday Tao, or sometimes Thursday. Oh, usually always Tuesday. We're going to try to make it that way now. And ladies and gentlemen, there is 88 verses of the Tao Te Ching. The 80th one, Wayne Dyer, titles Live Your Own Utopia. Won't it be nice when we get there to that chapter, or living our own utopia? Maybe we will be there by the time we're done going through this wonderful wisdom and this great research, ladies and gentlemen, this wisdom of the ages. And so if you did get value, I'd consider subscribing, smash the like button, leave a comment. All those things help push these up in the algorithm so they can get out to more people that may not come across them in their own way, but will if we can continue to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, and continue to make happiness the way in our lives. Because when we can make happiness the way, the destination becomes irrelevant, and all we do is enjoy the entire journey. And doesn't that sound fantastic, ladies and gentlemen? All right, thank you so much to everybody who takes time out of their day. I really appreciate and love everybody. And check out the description, grab yourself one-of-a-kind CLC paint landscape painting that I do. I did another one this week. That's that one in the background. And it's always a good week when we get a painting done, ladies and gentlemen. So maybe we'll do another one this week. I'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom. We'll be reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Wisdom of the Ages and expanding our own thoughts and how we can reach a higher quality of life. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.